was trying to put together a plan.
Of getting away with murder.
They walk among us. You've encountered one in your lifetime, or at least heard someone else bring up a story where they have. The psychopath could be present at your workplace. He or she could be your neighbor, or even your own family member. What's frightening is how the most dangerous group of people on Earth can, for the most part, wander through their lives undetected. Because while our stereotypical perception of these people is that they kill, many of them live seemingly normal lives, have high-paying jobs, families, and so forth. Ever feel your heart race for someone you care about? How about seeing a spider crawling up your leg? Maybe feeling scared about that test you have tomorrow that you didn't study for. Yeah, clinical psychopaths don't really get that, like at all. The physiological effects of anxiety is reserved for extreme safety risks. It's weird because psychopaths can get excited, yet many don't often feel anxiety. But even physiologically, their joy is blunted and fleeting. Basically, if you've ever felt nervous in any situation, pretend that you're responding to that situation as if you're watching a documentary. The situation is analyzed and not processed as being very threatening. Unless, of course, you're in front of a pack of wolves, then maybe it's a bit different. That's more or less the reality for a psychopath. At first glance, there's nothing that will give away their true nature, because the psychopath looks just like you, and even tries their very best to present themselves just like you. You'll likely not even bat an eye, considering they hide under a mask of superficial charm, and therefore often leave great first impressions. Picture this. You're dating a psychopath. They'll flatter you excessively, shower you with compliments, and you just can't feel any better. They may make you feel like there is this connection between the two of you from God knows where, and as if you've known the person for your entire life. They may try to ask you very personal questions, questions that feel a little too personal for a first or second date. Now, the person who's prey to the psychopath may think they're doing this because it's a sign that they're genuinely interested in you, that they really care. Actually, what they're doing is trying to get a sense of what makes you tick, trying to get a sense of your weaknesses and vulnerabilities, because later they will use that to their advantage. So the psychopath is motivated above all else by power. Life is a chess game. They're perpetrators and they're going to win. There's no equality or intimacy with psychopaths. They couldn't care less. It's a game. They can be ruthless and they will win. And they love to play it. And they don't know any other way. That's the only option.
You will see the lack of attachment to anyone that suggests Robert is not only a power and control offender, he's quite psychopathic as well.
The best way to fool people is to help them, is to ask what they want, ask what they need. Do they need any help doing anything? Do they need any money, or do they need their car fixed? Do they need the grass cut? Do they need their children looked out for? Do they need a job? Do they need anything to get them to think that I am a decent person and want to help? Trust me, I will help. And overall, that was a flat-out lie.
Why do you think makes people so trusting?
What do you mean, as far as trusting?
Trusting you.
Trusting me? Because to trust me, I thought that I could be trusted to a certain extent. But behind their back, no. I would take things from them, steal from them, scope out things that I could steal, just see what I could get out of somebody. Just get what I wanted.
Shockingly, regardless of how much love you feel like you're being treated with at first, whether it's a week into a relationship or maybe your first ever time talking to a certain colleague, the psychopath has a callous disregard for your emotions. It's not an arrogant or even defensive way of not caring for your feelings either. This ability just does not compute in the psyche of a psychopath. Psychopathy has a very strong genetic component to it, and it's actually an organic condition. Psychopaths do not feel emotional empathy. The suffering of others does not cause them distress on an emotional level. So to them, the suffering of others is simply a fact, not necessarily a tragedy. They're only able to develop cognitive empathy. If the psychopath maintains ties with you, it's likely because he or she sees you solely as a possession or a tool for them to take advantage of. Straightforwardly, the psychopath isn't capable of love, nor do they possess any form of guilt or remorse for their actions. In interview footage and so forth, it's quite unnerving when the psychopath explains his actions in great detail, with no affect and a flat tone. There's often no difference in delivery, whether the perpetrator, who's also a psychopath, talks about what he or she ate for lunch or how he or she killed someone.
What were your feelings towards her as her brother, her older brother?
We could sit here and talk all day about my feelings for my sister. A description of my feelings isn't something that I can give you in the brief time that we have together, because I loved her. I loved her with every fiber of my being.
But you say that in the present tense.
Yes.
I mean, she's dead because you killed her.
Yes.
But you love her.
Yes, I do.
Do you think you understand what love is? I mean, are you capable?
I don't really know how to answer that question. And I'm not saying that to be difficult or stubborn, but it's not simple. So I can't just point at something and say, okay, that's love. I recognize it easily, and I feel that.
Because psychopaths are prone to boredom, they tend to engage in highly risky activities, which is why many of them end up in jail. They're thrill seekers and look for quick stimulation. A key characteristic in defining who's a psychopath is impulsivity. Many psychopaths are what you'd call low-life people, which includes alcoholics, drug addicts, gamblers, and so forth. It's easy to forget to acknowledge that psychopaths are different, despite the fact they all share certain key traits. While psychopathy is a genetic predisposition, meaning it's a part of the individual's nature, nurture is often the catalyst that will either turn the psychopath into a successful banker or a serial killer such as Ted Bundy. More often than not, when you read or hear about psychopathic criminals such as Richard Ramirez or Charles Manson, men who've committed crimes that will make you feel physically sick, they were very likely subjected to a great deal of abuse in their childhood. In the early stages of childhood, your brain is the most impressionable, and if you experience physical or psychological abuse, as well as trouble attaching to your parents, that will leave imprints in your subconscious all the way into adulthood. As mentioned, the general perception of a psychopath is usually someone like Ted Bundy, but he's on the extreme far end of the spectrum of psychopathy, what Dr. James Fallon would refer to as a full-blown psychopath. While there's not much evidence or research conducted to prove this, a psychopath's eyes might be able to reveal a part of their predatory nature. Victims and just people in general tend to observe that their eyes differ from those of regular people. They appear more reptile-like, as if their pupils don't dilate. When we make eye contact with someone, we usually feel some form of connection. We might sense that we're not just looking into someone's eyes, but into their soul as well. The various suggested characteristics of psychopath eyes seem to echo the general belief that people with this disorder don't have many emotions to show. These descriptions include dead, flat, or reptilian-like eyes, very dark irises or eyes that appear black, pupils that don't dilate, an expression such as a smile that doesn't reach the eyes, a soulless stare. While the psychopath appears to have a severe mental illness from our perspective, they frequently are unaware of any mental health issues. The psychopath openly claims that their condition is a blessing because they don't see anything wrong with themselves. And here's the thing, all psychopaths acknowledge they're different from other people in some way or the other, but some just aren't even aware they're psychopaths. The label hasn't even crossed their mind. From the perspective of, may I say, regular people, this life sounds somewhat relaxing. They don't get stressed or anxious and seem to not get screwed over by, the emotional side of life. However, don't forget that they're their own worst enemy. By one popularly cited estimate, up to 25% of America's imprisoned people meet the criteria for a diagnosis of psychopathy, compared with the 1 to 2% of the general population. They typically don't function in society very well, and having one in your life is a nightmare. They manipulate, lie, and won't back down from what they're trying to achieve. The general idea is that psychopaths are always working people when interacting with them. Not in an autistic way, but just attempting to assert their strengths and weaknesses. Since this is a part of their inherent nature, I would assume this process is subconscious. Secondly, they manipulate the individuals by feeding them carefully crafted messages, while constantly using feedback from them to build and maintain control. Psychopaths wear masks. Their masks typically include the pretense of having a full range of emotions, the pretense of having a conscience, the pretense of being able to bond with others, and the pretense of having empathy, values, principles, and remorse. Their mask is a form of manipulation. It is an illusion. Because it's an illusion, it can be switched on or off, or instantly adjusted to suit the circumstances. Psychopaths use language as a weapon. It's not a means of honest communication or a way of getting closer to others. They use lies, reframing, cherry-picked facts, false logic, half-truths, lies by omission, rationalizations, pedantic nitpicking, and anything else they can think of. Their masks, mirroring, and silver-tongued use of words can have a spellbinding effect on other people. Many psychopaths are therefore described as charismatic psychopaths. Guys, there's nothing cool about being a psychopath. Keep that in mind. It's not like in the movies, but I wouldn't know. I'm not one of them, I promise. Thanks for watching this episode of Horror Vault.